Hello everybody, welcome to the Art Workshop. I'm Christopher Epling. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. Your viewership is so important to us here. This little workshop that we've been now over 50 episodes, I think, have been producing for a while, really exists for you, the viewer. The reason for that is we would love to promote and encourage art in our area, and this is basic art application, so when you watch the show you draw along with me at home. Don't have to draw along with me at home, but if you were to, you can send your image actually into us here, and we would love to share that. You can send it to eplingillustrations@gmail.com. Be sure and let me know who drew it, the age of the person, any information you want to include, like maybe where you go to school. You can do that. If you don't go to school, if you're, let's say, far past all that, then we'd still love to share your artwork to us. So send us your age if you don't care. If you don't want to put your age, that's fine. You can just your name. We'll be happy with that. We just want to share your work, okay? So as of the recording of this video now, we have some much warmer weather that's coming into springtime. We're crawling very slowly out of winter, heading into, God willing, very nice weather in summer. And well, with spring, a lot of folks start to head outdoors, and as you go outdoors, those of you in our area that like to fish, well, you're already probably starting to get that fever to hit you, to get on the water or out near the water and do some casting. There's a lot of actually areas around that you could do that here. We live in one of the most prosperous areas in terms of outdoor activities of any place in the country, if not the world. I believe that wholeheartedly, from whitewater rafting to hiking, and of course fishing. So with fishing, there's different places you could go. There's the Elkhorn Creek. There's a few creeks. There's Elkhorn Creek. There's Knox Creek. You also have Shelby Creek, the Leviza Fork River. There's a Russell Fork, and then you also have the Tug Fork River. All these places are just wonderful places to go if you love to fish. If you love to fish for smallmouth bass, then this is really the areas to head out to. Now, smallmouth bass, which is what we're going to be drawing today, they mostly like to exist in very rocky waters, very clear waters, very well oxygenated waters. So the difference in a smallmouth and a largemouth, really you can see from the shape, of course, the mouth. The mouth is the biggest determining factor. They're shaped differently. The mouth does not go past the eyes on a smallmouth bass, and there's other things that differentiate a smallmouth from a largemouth. But we're going to be looking at specifically drawing that today, and we're using oil pastels for our medium. Now, we do have a word today that we want to focus on that everyone can get a grasp on. So we're going to start doing that now at the Art Workshop. We're going to be highlighting a key word, which will be the word that we're going to use a lot throughout the episode. Today, our key word is tone. Now, tone in art, what does that mean? Tone is something that's used a lot in art. And we're going to be looking at specifically monochrome. Monochrome, when we talk about tone, okay, describes paintings, drawings, design, photographs in one color or values of one color. A monochromatic object or image reflects colors and shades of limited colors or hues. Images using only shades of gray with black or white, they're called grayscale, black and white, and then there's also tones of other colors, of course, too. So we're really focusing on what tone means, and tone is in values and tones, and using these colors together to show light and dark. Now, nothing probably could give us a better representation of tone or monochrome in tone than drawing or using oil pastels to draw a smallmouth bass. So if you have paper, I'd like for you to go ahead and grab that out now. So we're going to get started because there's a lot to cover in today's episode. So I have my paper ready here, and as you can see over here to the side, I've got a few of these little tiny sticks at what look like almost like a crayon, but these aren't crayons. These are oil pastels. As you work with oil pastels, there's tons of different, of course, variety of brands and things, but as you work with oil pastels, you'll notice that they slowly start to whittle down, as all things do, and then you end up with these little pieces of color. Now, the way this pigment in this works is this is technically a dry wet medium because you don't use water or anything, but it's dry in the sense that you can put it down and you don't use color, but the waxy type oily polymers that are inside of these little sticks, the pigment, they're able to be blended. So you can see now I'm using my finger here and I'm blending this color out, And as I blend it, you can notice it starts to get lighter and lighter around the edges. Okay, so this is one of the colors we're going to be using today, and we're going to be using this technique of using our fingers and blending this. If you don't have any oil pastels at home, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about it. You can use crayons just the same. Of course, you can't blend them as well. Now, another color we're going to be using today is this color. Now, this is a really good way for you to see how a monochromatic or how tone works. So monochromatic, using one tone or one value of a color to produce different hues of a color, and you blend those together too. You can blend these tones in together. Now notice what's happening here. We're going from this dark green in the middle, and as I start to blend, we're going out, and this green is keeping the color, the hue of green. Okay, and we can add a little more if we need to. That's the great thing about oil pastels. It's keeping, okay, that hue. But what's happening is, you see it's starting to pick up now this more of this orange and these different things. And it's starting to give us all this variation of the color. So we go from dark out to light. But this is all technically a green, even though I've blended it with a little bit of this orange here, okay? So that's our concept of blending colors, but we need to also see how we're going to put these pieces together exactly. So for that, we need to think about the circle method, which we've used a bunch of times in the show, and we're going to continue using today. Using the circle method, we can put together our drawing in pieces. Now, I've sketched out something a little earlier for you to see kind of the general shape of what our fish will look like. When you look at this, you can see that there's some shapes in there. Okay, there's this round oval here. Okay, there's a smaller oval that we can draw for our tail, and then there's a triangle shape sort of for the actual base of the tail. Okay, these are going to be our basic shapes we're going to be using today. I'll draw them again for you before we start our actual paper so you have an idea. We're going to do an oval, right? Then a second oval, which will be here. And then we're going to draw a triangle for our tail. These are the shapes we're going to be using. Then we can go in and, just like with clay, you can just start cutting these pieces away and adding things to it in order for us to have the shape that we're going to have for our fish. That's the idea. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay? The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our first oval. So get your piece of paper, and we're going to draw an oval. Now, the oval is elongated. Okay, it's not as thick as it is wide. You can notice on the tips how it's thick here, and it goes thin at the edges. Very lightly pressing down on your paper, draw this shape. Okay. The second shape we're going to be drawing is a second oval down at the bottom, and notice how this is positioned. Okay, we're going to have this one right here. This one is pointed down this way, this one's pointed up this way, and then a triangle for the tail of our fish. All of these shapes come together to form our smallmouth bass. Okay? Now, if you've got these shapes drawn, we can go in and we can start carving out our details, starting up here at the mouth. The first shape we're going to be working on is the mouth. So come up to the edge of your oval, all the way up here, and you're going to draw a line that comes up, tipping the top part of your oval, just like this, right at the edge. Okay? This is the first part of the mouth. The second part of the mouth will come out this direction. So you have the top going up like this, and the second coming out. Now we'll work a little bit more with the top part. With this one, we're going to actually bring it up and then come down and back in, just like that. So you have this shape occurring at the tip of your oval, right? The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to draw a line coming up and down, just like that. Once we have that, we're going to draw a line that's going to follow our oval all the way back this direction, all the way back to the tip back here where you originally drawn your oval to come down towards. Okay? Once we have this part, we're going to draw a line coming straight down. See what I've done? It's coming down here, now down towards the tip, just like that. Okay? This will give us the ability to show the bend in the body of the bass. So let's work on the body now. Coming back up here where the mouth is, comes up, down. Now this piece. Draw this line coming out from the bottom, and then we're going to work more with shaping this up. So we want this to look as if it's the front part of the mouth. So we're looking down into it just a little bit. We can see a portion of inside of the mouth, but not much. So I've drawn these lines to come down the body into the base of the fish right here. Okay, just like that. Once you have that, now you can actually show that bend. And that bend is the only thing is it just comes down, a line comes down from this oval out to the tip of a triangle, just like that. Okay? Once you have that, you can actually connect the lines. We're just basically tracing over our lines, okay? So we're going over top of what we've already drawn. It's nothing major. We're not trying to do anything too complex. We're just following our lines. Once we have all of these lines created, we can use our eraser and get rid of the pieces of the oval that we had that we're not going to use anymore. You know, those ovals just exist to help you, to guide you on where your lines will be. I like to go ahead and get rid of them a lot of times when I'm working with something like this where there's a lot of detail, because what helps me, it helps me to actually see what's going to be coming next. I want to be able to carve this as if it's clay. And I know that doesn't necessarily make sense because we're working on paper, but we're carving the shape out of an existing shape. So think of it like that. Think of it, we took a block of clay, we're laying it down, and we're starting to carve on it. We're starting to take pieces away, we're adding pieces to it, and that's what basic drawing is all about. If you're using a subject you're looking at, you're trying to capture you know, what the image looks like, you build it from very slowly with shapes, okay? At least that's always what's worked for me. Now you notice I've drawn this line that comes down and up. This is actually part of the gills, okay? You don't have to draw too many exact lines. You don't have to match mine completely, but you do want to have the gills being drawn. So you want to draw this by drawing these little lines, these curvy lines that come down up underneath the bottom part of the bass here, okay? So they come down in these jagged little lines. They don't have to be any arrangement, anything perfect. Just make sure you have these shapes in there. Because what happens is, extending out from the gill here, we have the dorsal fin. So it comes out in this direction to draw what looks like a guitar pick. I know everyone's seen a guitar pick. A guitar pick has a shape that looks almost like a triangle. And we want that to extend out from the gill, just like that. And we add some lines in there. Now we're going to be using our pastels here in a little bit. We're going to actually go over it, and so we want to make sure we know where all of our elements are, okay? Now our fish is starting to look a little better now. Well, actually, I should say our two ovals. So what we want to do is keep working with it. So we're going to come up here to the top of the fish's head, and we're going to put the eye in there, okay? Now for smallmouth bass, the mouth does not extend too far past back behind the eye. So this probably could pass for a smallmouth, but maybe it looks a little more like a largemouth, but that's okay. It's a bass, okay? So you're going to draw a circle now, here, up towards the top of the head, right? Inside of that circle, you're going to add another little circle, because we're going to have light shine reflecting off of the bass's eye, okay? Now, inside of the mouth, we've got these shapes that come down that form the structure of the cartilage inside of the bass's mouth. Now we're going to work on the top fin, which is on the back. So we're going to come down the top of the fish here, and we're going to draw a line sticking out like that, just coming straight up from our oval. This line comes up. Now with this fin, what we need to do is we need to make these little shapes, some long, some small. You don't have to do it perfect. You don't have to match mine completely, but you want it to taper down so it goes into the body. Okay, so you're starting here, drawing a line coming out, tapering it down into the body. This allows us then to put little tiny lines that come up, which make the cartilage of the fin. All right, I want to make sure I have that. There's another fin that extends out from the back, so let's go ahead and put that on here. It comes out like this, down and into the body. Okay, this fin is important because we want to be able to break this shape coming down into the tail, right? we have another fin that sticks out. So right down here at the main base of the body of the bass, we want to draw these little shape that come down and back up in there. So we have this little fin right here. We want to be sure to include that as well. Okay. Up underneath the fish, we also have a couple more shapes we need to be sure and include. One of those, and you can use your eraser to get rid of lines you don't need if you feel that you want to shape up the bottom of the bass a little more, you can do that. So we're going to draw this shape now at the bottom right here. There's two of these. One comes down like this and in, back up that, and then the second one's right behind it. Down, in, back up there, like that. Okay? You can get rid of anything inside of these shapes. It'll maybe help you be able to see it a little better on the screen. Now darken it a little bit more so you can see what I've done. There's two of these, okay? One is behind the fish, the other's in front, right? Now we actually can go down and draw some shapes making up the tail. So we want to make a line going across like this, and then these tiny little cartilage spikes will come out, little lines. It's going to make up the tail, something like that, okay? Now, we're actually to the point where we can work a little bit with our pastels. So if you do not have pastels at home, like I said, it's okay. This is the time where you actually need to also clean up your drawing a little bit more. You want to be able to get rid of pencil lines that you're not using, lines that you've drawn that aren't going to be a part of the actual finished piece. Go ahead and get rid of those. This is the time where we do that, okay? You can add a few more shapes in there if you say to yourself, well, I want to make sure and separate these two things here, these two portions of the drawing, so this will be one color, the other will be another. We want to do that. Now, bass have certain markings, and I learned a lot from one of our producers. Ronnie had told me that actually the lines are different with every single fish, and then also the shapes will actually be connected to the environment. So the color of the fish, the shape of the markings, all these things are connected to the environment. So for our particular fish, though, we have certain colors we're going to use, but we want to know where the markings exist on our fish. So starting at the top up here, what we're going to do is we're going to add these markings. So what I'm going to do for my, and yours can be different, yours can be totally different than mine, but I'm going to draw these lines that's going to represent the markings of the fish. Okay, so it's going to come up, it's going to come down, and this is where I'll actually add certain colors a little bit later. So it's important to have these shapes onto the fish so that I know where to add the color later. And with the bend of the fish, we want to remember something here, is that the back of the fish goes down and then it comes here too. So we have a portion here that's actually going to have some of these shapes to it. Maybe not as many, but there will be color there that we have to add, okay? Now we have the basic outline of what we need to start adding our pastels. Those of you with maybe colored pencils, crayons at home, grab those out. This is the time where we're going to be using them. What I'm doing right now is cleaning up the area a little bit more. I want it to be very clean, so when the color is applied, we have the surface nice and open for the receive the pigment, okay? It's very important to do that. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to start out always light to dark, okay? So anytime that you're working with any type of media and you're coloring, go light to dark with it. All right, so we're going to start out by doing so. I've got an assortment of green here. And one thing you're going to notice too, pastel is not as messy as paint, but it is a little messy, right? And what I'm going to do is I want to lay a coat down first, and I'm going to blend off to the side, and you can do this, blend off to the side of your drawing to see what will happen when you start to blend certain colors together. Now, I want to make sure that when I add these colors together and blend them, they don't produce something totally opposite of what I'm hoping for, okay? So I'll start down at the bottom of the fish, going light to dark. And I'm going to pick a color that's this is a yellowish type color that's actually like an ochre color. And then I have this color here, which is actually more of a off beige color, okay? And I'm going to work on the bottom of the fish. So I'm going to, at the bottom, we'll start applying this pigment down. Really lightly putting it down. You're going to see it starting to pick up a little bit of the color of the graphite from the pencil. But I want this to be all along the bottom of the fish. This is the tricky part here. Remember, your fish bends. So you at home, maybe with colored pencils, very lightly use a color that's similar to what I'm working with here. You're going to go in and you're going to start adding the color at the bottom of the fish. Okay? We want to remember where our light source is, so we'll pretend that the light's coming down this way, just like that. And we have to remember that as we're working. Okay? It's really important. So I'm going to blend a little bit more color in here now. And as you start to build color with colored pencil, you'll see something really interesting that starts to happen. Okay? The more pigment that you have on the surface, the more easy it is to blend other colors to it. That's why a lot of times I like to use white. So I'll go in literally with just a white pastel brick of pastel, oil pastel, and I'll go in and I actually put a coat of this on the bottom or wherever surface I'm working on so that I have more pigment build up on my drawing to work with. This is a trick to use. Those of you at home that have any type of oil pastels around, remember that you want to build up levels or layers of this to work from, okay? So that's what we're doing now. We're building up a lot of layers so that we can blend nice and easy. I'm going to go over the entire bottom of the fish, and you're going to see this start to build up a little bit more. It's pulling a lot of the, where I had to actually press down with the color with the pencil earlier, it's pulling a lot of that out. But that's okay. We can work with that. We'll use it. And get all the surface of the bottom of this fish with a layer of white on it, just like that. Okay? Now what I can do, since I've done this, is actually go in with other colors and start to blend more. And you'll see that start to happen in a second. You start adding these other colors in, the lines that you've created will all start to come together. Okay? Alright, there's one layer of pastel. Can't see it very well at home because it's actually it's white. So now I'm using this color that's sort of a greenish type blue. You can see when I mix it here, the tone that we talked about earlier. Bass have a very interesting tones to their colors. They actually blend in this way that if you look at them from a distance, they may look one color, of course, except for the belly. When you get up really close to them, you'll notice then that there's tons of patterns. And that works the same a lot when you're thinking of anything that's monochromatic or has different tones to it. Is that it may look one color, but when you get close up and look at it very fine detail, you'll notice that there's tons of color involved making up whatever it is you're looking at. Tons of different, I should say, tones of the same color. I'm sorry. Now I've laid this layer down that goes across the entire bottom part of my fish, and as you can see, it's light. That's what I want. Now what I want to do is work on the top, going down the back of the fish, going into actually the tail part and all of these areas surrounding. And just like I did before, I'm laying down a coat of white. So you're not going to be able to see this at home very well, but if you were here with me in the studio, you'd be able to see that this fish is completely covered, or will be, in a layer of oil pastel. And that's exactly what I want. I want this layer to go over the entire fish because I'm blending, just like if you were to add, let's say, some white acrylic paint with, let's say, green. And you'll notice that the blending that occurs there happens a lot differently because you have a layer of paint or pigment already down on the surface. So I'm going all over the surface of the fish, even the fins. You're going to notice that it's starting to pick up a little bit more of the pigment from the graphite. That's okay, and that can actually help to add to your drawing. Have fun with oil pastels. We could be very technical and go very precise with our application of all this media that we talk about on the show. But the biggest point here is for you to have fun. Now this color that I used earlier, I'm going all across the top of the fish now, down the back. I want this color to be one that's going to end up blending a lot of these other colors into it. Okay. Now I'm going down the stripes. I'm just putting a layer here. I'm going to use my finger to blend this. They sell, you can buy, I should say, blending sticks for various purposes at your craft store. So if you don't like using your finger, you can definitely use something different. You can go get a actual blending stick that will help you do this for you. Now I'm going back in with my finger and I'm blending all these colors in. I want this entire layer of this green that I've applied to be very smooth. Okay, to do that, you have to use something, and I'm using, of course, my finger to do that. I'm even going to go now with the same color. I'm going to work a little bit on the fins. I'm going to add a little bit of this color on the different types of fins that the bass have. Okay, I want this color to be my main tone of the fish, like we talked about earlier with their key word. We have a monochromatic drawing that deals with different tones. Monochromatic typically is all of one color with all these different tones. Think of the easiest example, of course, would be the black and white drawing or painting. That's one tone of a color. It's grayscale. But there's also, you know, different tones of different colors. So you could use a specific example of green and have a drawing with tons of the same color on it. And that's what we're doing here. We're going all throughout our drawing, adding this color in. Okay. You at home should be doing the same thing, even if you're not working with oil pastels. You want to add this color all across the entire surface of whatever specific area you're working on, okay? Now, like for instance, the dorsal fins and these fins underneath the body here, I'm putting the same color in there using my finger while blending. Now, it would be really difficult for us to grab this absolute specific color of the stripes and things for the bass. It would take a long time, and to be very honest with you, probably oil pastels wouldn't be the way to go to do that if you're wanting it to look very technical, very realistic. The only way for you to actually do that with oil pastels, to have it look very realistic, would be probably to go and work on a very large surface. That way you could really get in there and add those details. Now I'm continuing again with the same color. I'm just mixing it with my finger more. I'm putting it in various places that I think would be needed, because here in a second we're going to go back over this with a different color of green. Okay, just layering these out, making sure that I have them where I want them and where I need them. Maybe put just a little bit of color here, not too many for the gills. Okay. Now what I'm going to do right before I use this next color is to take the same color I've been working with and very firmly add one more large pass across the top part of the body of the bass. So up here at the top where our stripes will be coming down from, I got one more pass with this, but I'm pushing down pretty heavy this time. You can see the effect that has, okay? Be sure and wipe off excess little tiny crumbles of this, because if you don't and you're working with a specific color later, what could happen is it could catch that color and it could surprise you. Now I'm working with a different tone of green now. I'm going down the back again, okay? This is a more of a darker green, and what you're going to see happen is when I blend this in, it's going to blend a lot easier than those first little tiny attempts down at the bottom. Okay, all the way down the back of the bass, putting in these lines for the stripes a little bit. Now I'm not coloring it in. I'm not coloring it in to the point where I've drawn across every little portion. I'm only dabbing it here and there where is needed. Okay, you can do this at home, get the effect with your colored pencil by using a blender. You can also, with a colored pencil, use baby oil, which is something we'll be covering at certain points with our different types of techniques and applications in a little segment called Sketches. I look forward to hopefully producing that soon for you too. Sketches will be a show that is going to be shorter than the art workshop, but it's going to be designed for you at home. And if you have a certain type of tool that you need, you don't have access to, I'm going to teach you how to create your own, even how to go as far as to make your own ink at home. And the only thing that you need, nothing special, you need a pot and a pan, and some walnuts, and maybe a little bit of vinegar, and we can create our own ink. So I'm using this color, doing the same thing that I did before, putting it in various locations of the drawing. I'm not putting it everywhere. I'm not coloring in every little line, but I'm just making sure to add some here and there so that this tone of this green is spread out evenly throughout the entire drawing. Now I'm going to return back up to the top again, this time using even a darker color green. This time we're actually going to be using a color that is almost to the point of being an aqua type green. Okay, this one I don't want to put a lot on it. I don't want to apply a lot of this color into our drawing. I want just a little bit of this color at the top of the fish, not much. And see what I'm talking about with blending? Look how I'm pulling down the color from the top now, because I've applied so many layers of this by now that I'm able to actually draw or paint with my finger. And I don't need to actually apply any more pigment because it's so blended. The layers are so dense that I'm able to do this. Sometimes you have to go back and use a color that you've used in the past to maybe make sure that the colors blend well. You know, with a monochromatic piece, it's all one color, so you're just using the different hues or tones of that color throughout it. You can see how that works there, okay? If you're noticing any black, it looks like black in this, or dark, maybe even to the point of gray or something, that's actually the pigment of the graphite being pulled up. Now we have the fish that is completely laid out in green, and we're going to be sure, though, before we end up finishing up, we want to make sure that the belly is taken care of. So I'm going to go back into this, and I'm going to put a little bit of gray in here, not much. Now you're saying, I bet at home, you're talking about monochromatic, you're using gray, that's not green. Well, it will be once we blend it. So you can see I put this layer at the bottom. Now I'm starting to blend into this lighter color with my finger, and before you know it, this gray will actually blend in to become a tone of green. And that's the idea that you have behind blending and behind hues and all those wonderful things. Up around the mouth portion, I want to do the same thing. I want to put a little bit of gray in there in the shadow of the mouth. I want this to, I want folks, when they look at this, to see that the mouth of the fish is definitely open, and they can almost determine where the light source is coming from, because the shadow helps you to understand that. Now, just to be consistent, I'm going to use a little bit of the colors I've used throughout here into the mouth, not much, just a little bit. That's the thing about, I worked with a student recently, Betsy Lane High School. She's doing this piece on different animals from the animal shelter, so she's painting the animals that are up for adoption, just the profile of the face of the animal. And something she did very well was use the same color throughout so that you could tell what was happening with the fish, with the animals. All right, we're going to finish up now with just a little bit of red actually in the eye, not very much, just a little bit. Okay, and once you have that, I wish that we would have had a larger surface to draw this on, because you'll be able to really see the detail that I've put into the eye. Put a little bit of yellow, okay, and yes, I'm breaking my rule of monochromatic green right now, but that's okay. And then I'm going to use a little bit actually of black in there too, okay. This is only just to show the reflection of light in the pupil, so that we have that effect that there is light coming in, and the pupil is definitely animated. Okay. Now some artists will go back over their piece and use black, and they'll actually trace over all their lines. I don't necessarily want to do that with this one. I will, however, go over it with yes, the darker green again, if there's certain areas of the fish that I feel needs a little more attention. But one thing you have to be very careful about with this, using this method of using your finger and going in, is that you need to remember what color you used last and what you blended last, because you can actually go in there and you have blue on your finger and you're trying to do something in white and completely mess it up. It looks like we're about to the point right here where we can call it a day, but in order for us to really bring out the effects of the fish and the monochromatic tone, you want to be sure and go back over, and these fine little portions of the fish that really didn't get a whole lot of attention, you want to be sure and give it just a little more color. Okay, you want to be sure and have all of your area of the surface of your fish colored out, and and filled up with pigment. Okay, that's important to do. A lot of artists forget that. You know, they'll leave a certain portion when they're finished that's not been attended to, and it's good to have all of the area of your drawing nice and fleshed out. I hate to talk right now. I'm so sorry, but are we? Can we finish now? Are we going longer? Or is it? What do y'all think? You think it's okay? Yeah. Okay. You sure?
Especially do a couple of days of sketch. We can throw the. We really need those. We're constantly moving stuff. 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes.
Oh, we could. I'm sure David and Aaron. They have some ideas for it, and I got some stuff I can do. So I'm sorry I'm talking to everybody while I don't know what I'm supposed to be. So you think we can pull out now? You think that's good? What do you think? I mean, okay. So we finished up. We've applied our color. I think we've done a pretty good job of getting the monochromatic green, the look of this this bass. I wish we had more time. If we had more time, we could work on a larger scale. We could really get in here and look at how this process works from a tiny little area. But maybe eventually it's something we can do. But this has been great today to be able to share this with you. We really appreciate you tuning in. Hope you've had a good time. If you tried to put together your own smallmouth or largemouth bass and you'd like to share it with us, we'd love to have it. Just email me at eplingillustrations@gmail.com. I'll bring it in and we'll show everybody your awesome artwork here on the show. So thanks so much again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Christopher Epling, and keep drawing.